Hey there, class. Mr. Young here. Welcome to Chapter 7, Lesson 1. We're talking all about the Articles of Confederation today. We watched that cool video, very informative, on the prior page. Now let's get into our content. So, the war's won. Independence has been achieved. Now that the colonies won their independence, though, what will they do with it? Even before signing the Declaration, Congress started laying the foundation for the country. In May of 1776, Congress told the states to make sure to write their own constitutions. Folks writing them were understandably leery at the prospect of giving too much power to any one person, so they spread the power out. The power of the governors in these first constitutions were limited. Basically, they were like all anti-king and anti-monarchy at the time. They had these very strong sentiments against giving any individual man too much power. So governor power in all these states were limited. In fact, Pennsylvania, for example, didn't even have a governor. It had like an executive council of 12 different individuals. That'd be like having 12 different presidents, and each had their own specific little power. Most of the states set up bicameral houses, which of course means there are two houses, like an upper chamber and a lower chamber, much like we have the House of Representatives and then the Senate. Now, since state governments had already been set up, with new independence, a federal government needed to be set up. Most agreed that the federal government needed limiting, with states having more power than the federal government. All agreed that the new country should be a republic, with the people ruling through their elected representatives. So, Joe Schmo on the street doesn't govern, but he elects someone to govern in his stead. Members of the House and Senate. In 1776, Congress set up a committee to build the first government of the United States. In 1777, Congress adopted the Articles of Confederation. This plan was not fully adopted by all states until 1781. Maryland was holding out as a result of a land dispute with other states. The Articles were less of a constitution, though, and more of like a formal alliance. Under the Articles, there was a legislature, but no executive or judicial branches. So basically, there was a Congress, but there was no office of the president and no court system. The legislature that it did create was limited in power. Let's take a look at it graphically. So the Articles of Confederation gave this federal legislature the power to declare war and make peace, maintain an army and navy, make treaties with other countries, borrow money, and establish a postal service. Things it was not allowed to do. There was no executive branch. It could not raise any taxes. It could not stop states from printing their own money. That would be a problem. It could not regulate trade with other countries or between states. And of course, there's no court system. So you will note the distinct lack of ability to make money. Couldn't raise taxes. No taxes means no revenue for the federal government. To get any money, they basically had to ask for it from the states, and the states had to give it to them, but they were under no obligations to give them money. It was like they were basically beggars, begging the states for money to do anything. This is going to cause problems. Another issue was that any laws required 9 of the 13 states to approve them, and changing the articles, like amending them, required 13 out of 13 states' approval. That meant getting anything done was very difficult. It's like trying to order a pizza for 13 different people, and they all have very different tastes. You'd probably just throw up your arms, tell everyone to go starve. And trying to throw this memeage in here for you guys that love memes. The Articles of Confederation could give power to the national government? Yeah, that would be great. Office space. Okay. Despite the overwhelming issues facing the new country with its weak central government, the Congress was able to get some work done. They did, after all, negotiate the treaty with Britain to end the revolution, the Treaty of Paris. That was the work of the government under the Articles. And they did manage to expand foreign trade as well. Another major accomplishment of the Congress during the Articles was to set up policies for expanding west and the creation of new states. The first such law was the Ordinance of 1785. This basically surveyed all the land north of the Ohio River and set up a system to divide and sell it. So like here, the Northwest Ordinance passed in 1787. This is another one. And took all the land that was surveyed and divided it into territories. As such, when the territories reached a population of 60,000, they could apply for statehood. The Northwest Ordinance actually had a Bill of Rights attached to it for the settlers to ensure things like religious freedom, and it even prohibited slavery. These policies were set up in such a way to get people to expand into these territories, but they didn't have people moving in there as fast as they had hoped, which is pretty crazy considering everyone wants to move west. So in order to encourage more people to move into these Northwest territories, Congress passed the Land Act of 1800. The essence of the law was that settlers could buy land and pay it off over time instead of buying land with one lump sum. It was basically a form of like financing to buy land, what we have today. So instead of me buying a sweet 300-acre farm outright for $1,000, I could put down like $300 and then pay the rest off over time. And so they got more people to move in there that otherwise couldn't afford it. Alright, problems at home. Back to the problems. Congress could not pass taxes, so they couldn't make revenue. And as I mentioned there, that was a problem. They still owed money to the soldiers of the Revolution. They had to just keep asking the states for money. The states provided the federal government with less than half the funds that they needed to do their job. In Chapter 6, we mentioned that the Congress had printed paper money, and they were called Continentals. They were like the Yund bucks. Remember the Yund bucks? Worthless. Yeah, Continentals, basically worthless because they're not backed up by enough precious metals like silver and gold. As a result, they depreciated, becoming almost worthless, just like a Yund buck. Now, in 1781, the country's finances were in the dumps. Typo, Mr. Yund. Where's the English teacher? Alright, they tried to resolve this by creating a new Department of Finances by a guy you may have heard of named Robert Morris. Morris proposed a 5% import tax to pay off the debt. 12 of the 13 states approved, but Rhode Island refused. Jerk move, Rhode Island. I tell you, there's always one. Rhode Island. So, as a result, still no revenue coming into the federal government, and the financial situation would continue to get worse. Let's talk about foreign relations real quick before we finish up. It turns out that Britain was not a graceful loser. They had agreed in the Treaty of Paris to remove all troops from the West, but they did not. There were still isolated British forts off in the frontier, and Britain basically refused to remove them, citing that the Americans had not yet paid the Loyalists back for the land that they had taken from them during the Revolution. Congress didn't have any money to give them, and they said, alright, well, the states, that they're state governments, you have to pay back the Loyalists, and the states were just like, nope, not going to do it. So that wasn't going to happen. Britain was also blocking American ships from trading in the West Indies and other very profitable markets, so kind of being jerks. Spain was also playing hardball with the United States. Spain owned lands west of the United States and wanted to basically check U.S. expansion. They didn't want the U.S. coming into their territory. So Spain would not let American ships, they wouldn't let Americans ship their goods on the Mississippi River down to New Orleans. That was a pretty big deal because back then river travel of goods was basically how you moved goods. It was the most efficient and cheapest way to do it. So that would be like basically Spain kind of not letting you use a superhighway. That's there, it's just there, and you're not allowed to use it. That's a really big problem. The Congress tried to hash out a trade agreement with Spain, but the southern states wouldn't approve of the deal, leaving the situation with Spain, in quite a pickle. Quite a pickle. Alright, up next, that's it for the day. A lot of content in there. We have a quick little quizzy-wizzy. 10 points. Multiple attempts if you need them. Go ahead and knock her out, and we'll pick up again with lesson 2 tomorrow. Alright, hey, have a wonderful day.